Before anything else, why is Independence Day celebrated on the 4th of July? It's because it's the date written on the piece of paper. This may sound like a little bit of a stupid answer, but it's true. Members of the Continental Congress had written down feeling that other days before the 4th of July were more important, such as the 2nd of July and the 3rd of July. If you're not believing me, it's true. Anyway, on to the snowflakes. Let's begin with some early snowflakes, just to give you an idea of where it started off. These snowflakes were made 3 years before these other ones. This one here has Jedi starfighters in it. They're the diamond and dot shapes. This next one has lightsabers and the symbol of the Rebel Alliance in it. And before the presidential series of snowflakes, there's a series of 7 flakes I like to call the number series because of their different number sides. This snowflake, as the first of the number series, has 7 sides, not because it was supposed to be that way, but because I messed up measuring it on the protractor. I knew that it looked a little bit funny before I cut it out. But anyway, this snowflake is about Franklin Pierce and alcoholism. The little face in there is the old man in the mountain because he was from New Hampshire. Then came this George Washington in a bar snowflake. And then there was this snowflake also about Franklin Pierce, who was the 14th president and not a very good one. This snowflake is about the death of his remaining son in a train wreck after his election and before the inauguration. It's a very sad snowflake, but I think it's one of my best ones, simply because of its strong imagery. Also about George Washington in a bar. An ordinary was a sort of tavern. I thought, hey, if I'm doing presidents, why not do a first lady? Martha! Again, I decided to do a different number of sides, this being the 8-sided one, also about Martin Van Buren. And then there came this flake, which shares many of the elements of the following presidential series. This one has scissors in it because I didn't know what it was going to be about at first, but then I made it about Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren was the 8th president. What his nickname was the Little Magician, and he was of Dutch descent and born in New York. Thus begins the presidential series. Number 1, George Washington. The imagery in this is sort of cheesy, but for some reason, people found one of their favorite ones simply because the way how the negative space works out. Number 2, John Adams. The A looks a little bit funny because I accidentally put in an M thinking James Monroe, James Madison, but then I realized, oh no, so I had to change it to an A. Number 3, Thomas Jefferson. The I represents watchfulness, and not necessarily his own eye either. Number 4, James Madison. There's the big holes around the mice tails. You know, he was short, small mouse. Because it just looked a little bit weird, and then I cut it out, and instead it just made it worse. James Monroe. The arms and star is supposed to represent the Monroe Doctrine, you know, like strong America, be bold, present yourself. Instead it just looks like weirdness that doesn't make any sense. Number 6, John Quincy Adams. The tree, like family tree, represents his relation to another president. Number 7, Andrew Jackson. I actually got his state of birth wrong. He was actually born in South Carolina, but he gained his fame in Tennessee, so that's my bad. Number 8, Martin Van Buren. This is one of the few star-shaped snowflakes. Number 9, William Henry Harrison. This one starts to develop the standard format you see in the majority of these snowflakes. Number 11, John Tyler. Now this one finally brings to full effect the standards format for the snowflakes, being the location of the initials, the location of what number they were, state of birth, special symbol, and a profile of the head. Polk. The question part represents that most people do not remember him. Accordion. Obvious pun. I actually really like how I got the hair in that profile. Number 12, Zachary Taylor. The birthday cake represents that I share the same birthday, November 24th, with him. Number 13, Millard Fillmore. Obvious pun with the ducks. I did a really good profile on this one. Number 14, Franklin Pierce. I really messed up on the profile. It looks like Beavis. Number 15, James Buchanan. He had funny looking hair, and I ended up making it a little bit like that of the Lollipop Kids in the Munchkin Town. The double deer or stags represents that he was unmarried. He got engaged, but then they became estranged, and they separated, and then she died, and he was like, oh no, I guess I'll never marry, and that is the tale of James Buchanan. Of course, number 16, Abraham Lincoln. This is one of my best snowflakes. Just everything works together, and the meaning is clear, and it just looks right. The shield symbol was taken from the back of the new penny. Number 17, Andrew Johnson. I did a bad profile here. Some people said, is that George Washington? I was like, no, it's Andrew Johnson. And well, anyway, the peach and X represents impeached. Well, he was almost impeached, but Congress missed it by 1 vote. Number 18, Ulysses S. Grant. The eye crying into a glass of wine, which represents alcoholism, depression, and being a bad president, is actually a very strong symbol, but it very poorly is shown in this snowflake. Rutherford B. Hayes. Now with this one I was starting to get annoyed with the standard format. That's why Ohio is in the positive instead of the negative. All those Ohio presidents. Number 20, James Garfield. This is the second star-shaped snowflake after the Martin Van Buren one. With this, I was really starting to rebel. I was getting annoyed with the format a little bit, so I did the numbers and the assassination sign in the positive. Number 21, Chester Arthur. This one has no profile, just a fun handlebar mustache. I really like the framework look. President number 22 and 24, Grover Cleveland, is probably the craziest snowflakes of the entire series. Number 23, Benjamin Harrison. Double trees represent his being a grandson of a previous president, obvious being William Henry Harrison. Number 25, William McKinley. The profile looks really bad. It instead looks like William Henry Seward, who was the Secretary of State under Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson. Number 26, Theodore Roosevelt. I messed up with the shape of New York really badly. Number 27, William Taft. I really like the profile with the mustache. It almost makes him sort of like one of those circus performers too. The little squiggly lines in the middle reads 300 as in 300 pounds. Number 28, Woodrow Wilson. The glasses in the negative makes him look like he's wearing sunglasses. This one feels really lacy. Number 29, Warren G. Harding. Obviously the teapots represent the Teapot Dome scandal. It's weird with those giant faces on the side that don't quite look like him either. Number 30, Calvin Coolidge. X on lips means his nickname, Silent Cal. Number 31, Herbert Hoover. Vacuum cleaners, obvious pun. This is weird because I don't show his profile or nothing at all, I just show a nose. Number 32, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The profile looks very good on this, in part because I had an excellent guide, the dime. Number 33, Harry S. Truman. The little windmills on the side represent his true farming roots, and the little circle with an arrow pointing to a bigger circle meant that he rose to the occasion after Franklin Delano Roosevelt's death. Number 24, Dwight D. Eisenhower. You'd be surprised that the state of Texas would be so prominent in this one, but it is. I tried to give a little bit of a military feel to this one, mainly all those lines in the middle of it. Number 35, John F. Kennedy. I wanted this one to sort of have a somber, sad feeling to it. Number 36, Lyndon B. Johnson. The Snoopies represent a silly controversy, holding up his beagles by their ears, just sort of being a ham on television. Number 37, Richard Nixon. I did well with the nose. The arrow symbol pointing downstairs means he stepped down. Number 38, Gerald Ford. There's an obvious pun with the truck shape in here. I want to give this a round feel, just as something different. Number 39, James Carter. I actually did a decent job on the profile on this one, even though it's not apparent. Number 40, Ronald Reagan. This one's a little bit confusing with my putting his profile upside down. I think it looks like Ronald Reagan in part because it has enough of a rustic look to it, which makes him look older. And I got the flair of that hair, that old-fashioned hair. Number 41, George H.W. Bush. The little cat in here represents his sayings for a kinder, gentler presidency, which really didn't happen. Number 42, William Clinton. I did a good job on the profile. The finger pointing to him means blame and also is like a naughty shaking finger too. Number 43, George W. Bush. The upper part of the forehead and the nose looks good, but then the chin part is sort of messed up. I'm still weak at making those chins in there. Cowboy hat, obvious meaning for that. And number 44, Barack Obama. There's supposed to be sort of like a linking chain line in it, but that really didn't work quite out. So that is the full series of snowflakes. Oh, so many of them.